And I remember just this icy cold, like just absolutely paralyzing fear that went up my spine. And I think I just had like an out of body experience for that entire, I don't even know. It felt like a half hour, but I'm sure it was just 5 minutes.
Today's guest plays bass and sings in a band from Pennsylvania that started making music back in 1999. They initially called themselves Sunday Drive, but pretty early on they changed their name to the Starting Line. Over the years, they released some beloved and highly influential records, the kind where Taylor Swift cites them in her songs. I mean, come on. In 2008, they broke up knowing someone would miss them, and they were absolutely right. We missed them, and now they're back. They dropped a new record last year called Eternal Youth. Their sound has evolved over time, but without ever losing that signature quality. So when you hear one of their songs and you hear my guest voice screaming his heart out, you know instantly who it is. Today's guest is Kenny Vasoli from the Starting Line, but also from other musical projects such as Vacationeer and the newly announced band Film. Hi Kenny, and thanks for being here on my podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you on.
Buongiorno and grazie. I really appreciate that. It was a spectacular intro.
Great, thanks. So, first thing I always ask all of my guests is, have you ever felt weird, strange, different from the other people? And if yes, how did it affect your music and what you do in general?
Yeah, I've always felt strange. I still feel strange as far as the comparing myself to other people that I've grown up with and have still am in this line of work with. I still feel like I'm always kind of struggling to find my place exactly in this world and in this music scene, and that's been evident ever since I was a young boy. And when I was in somewhere between like third grade and sixth grade, I started discovering punk rock, and I had some friends that were aware of it, usually from older brothers and sisters and whatnot, that would be familiar and be able to like fall into my friend group. But even within punk rock, I found that a lot of people listen to stuff that was just like too aggressive for me, and I wanted something that was more melodic. So I was constantly seeking out things that were on the fringe of even the punk rock scene. You know, bands like Face to Face and No Effects, like bands that were still fast and had velocity, but were somewhat more inclined to know their way around a melody. And yeah, and even now, being 41, nearly 42 years old, I still feel like I'm in this in between area where my band is like too fast and noisy for some people, but then not punk enough for other people. And it's been a lifelong progression of acceptance and really self acceptance more than anything.
And that's great. And I mean, for sure, even like talking about the pop punk scene and that genre, yeah, as you said, you are for sure a strange animal. I mean, the way you explored sounds with the Starting Line, like I'm a big fan of Directions, for example, which is an amazing and very strange record for that genre, I think.
Yeah.
And also with Vacationeer, I mean, you changed your genre, you started exploring new sounds, and so it got I think it must have something to do with the way you feel and what you were saying. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've always really been fascinated in things that were a little bit out of the ordinary, especially with music. I think that that's one of the most exciting things about the world of music is that, all these records, there's just so many different places that music can go. It can have really crazy, ferocious drums, or it can have no drums at all, or just barely hitting them. And I find enjoyment in all ends of the spectrum. And I'm glad that I'm speaking to someone from Italy too, because I have and maybe this is strange to some people, but I really have a fascination with like 60s, 70s Italian movie soundtrack.
Yeah.
scores like Franco Micazili and like Cipriani, Stelvio Cipriani, like people like that really are they make music that I gravitate to like now, especially like with Vacationer. That's one of the greater influences with that project.
Wow, that's great. That's great to hear. It's amazing. So yeah, I love how different things can just like, uh, collides into something completely different, like you were saying. I love it. So maybe
Yeah.
you already answered this question I'm gonna ask you, but I'm gonna try. So what's the most precious thing you've received from your being or feeling strange? I mean, maybe it's something it must have something to do with music, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I feel like if anything else, my like self-proclaimed strangeness, I feel if it gives me any sort of advantage to what I do, it's maybe seeing the shape of music in a slightly out of the ordinary perspective, which might be some sort of a refreshing take on the sound for some people. That's what I like to bank on. I am like self-aware enough to know that like what I do isn't exactly the bullseye of the mainstream or going to win a popularity contest in this world of music, which has never been what I'm after. I've never been the most popular kid in school, not even by a little bit. I've always been a little bit of a loner and ran in really small circles, so I'm used to that kind of thing. But I do think I have enough of an aptitude for making music that I think that it's able to turn some heads. And then I really just bank on the idea of that if I feel this way and this is where my ear gravitates towards, in the sense of making music, then there must be other people that are like minded enough to understand what it is I do and accept like the language that I have for music.
Let's talk about growing up. Tell me about one or two of the scariest or most dangerous things you've done as a child or as an adolescent.
As a child, something that comes to mind was like I was really young and I was over at a friend of the family's house and they had a swimming pool and there was a bunch of kids in this sort of like life raft type thing in the pool, and some of like the older kids were diving like underneath the raft and just like playing a game and just like popping up the other side, and I was like trying to like run with the big kids and play along, and I swam and dove under the raft. But then I remember just like popping up and the raft just kept like coming over my head, so I like couldn't get air. And my mom, bless her soul, like jumped in the pool like with her clothes on and jeans and stuff and pulled me out, and became, a lifelong hero,
Yeah,
even more than she was one. So that was, one of the more like scarier. It's not like the most like daredevil thing ever, but for a kid, it was like one of the things that stuck out for me.
sure.
And then like the second scariest thing. Oh my God, my first time being on stage, I
Ah,
had entered a talent show in elementary school because I think I knew that I had an itch for performing in some way, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't play an instrument at this point, and I had I don't know if you're aware of the program Pee Wee's Playhouse.
no.
Oh, okay, it was like a children's show, but it was a very like bizarre children's show.
Oh, with
This
Pee Wee's.
with
With
Pee Wee, yeah,
oh yeah, yeah, I know him. Yeah.
for sure. So like on this show, he had some sort of like ventriloquist puppet where he would, I don't know if it was him that controlled the puppet, but it was one of those, like talk out the side of your mouth and then make the puppet talk. So I
Yeah.
had like that Pee Wee puppet, and I was like, I'll just do a ventriloquist act up there. And I didn't write anything. I wasn't very good at ventriloquizing. I don't know what the what the action verb is for it, but I wasn't good at all. And I'll never forget. I went up there so unprepared, and I completely bombed. I didn't get one like laugh or giggle or I remember just uncomfortable chatter throughout the audience. And I remember just this icy cold, like just absolutely paralyzing fear that went up my spine. And I think I just had like an out of body experience for that entire, I don't even know. It felt like a half hour, but I'm sure it was just 5 minutes of me completely bombing up there. And that was terrifying. And that was really the one time that I've gotten stage fright to that extent in my life. After I feel like it was good to dive into the deep end, even though it was truly humiliating, because it built up a tough skin for any time I was up on stage. From that point on, even if I do make mistakes, I'm able to laugh it off very quickly at this stage in the game.
Yeah, but sounds pretty scary, I gotta say.
It was scary, yeah. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was up there. I just knew I wanted to be up there, and I put the cart before the horse, as they say.
Tell me some of your first memories of music. Any detail, image, smell, or random thing that comes to your mind?
Yeah, I was just talking to my wife about this the other day, like my first musical memories, and I think that, well, I actually just unlocked this memory a couple of days ago because we have a very young daughter now, so we were talking about like toys that we had when we were kids and like music that we were listening to when we were kids, and it popped into my head. I was like, oh my god, I had this Big Bird from Sesame Street, this Big Bird record player, and I was like, oh my god, I haven't thought about this thing since I was like maybe 4 or 5 years old, but it was so dope. It was just a flip up record player. You put the little Big Bird arm on the record. I think it only
Wow.
played like 45 like size records, but it was so genius. You just put the arm on the record and then it just starts playing it starts revolving the turntable right away, and it sounded really good. And I remember listening to Limbo Rock by Chubby Checker, who I just found out is a Philadelphia guy too, which is unbelievable. Didn't even know that. Yeah, listen to lots of Limbo Rock. And then when we were on road trips out to see my mother's parents out in Altoona, Pennsylvania, it's like a 2.5, 3 hour drive from where we live. And my dad would put on cassettes, and a lot of it was Creedence Clearwater Revival was a band that I remember hearing a lot as a kid and really enjoyed. And
Yeah.
also Van Morrison was another big one as a kid, like listening to Moon Dance a lot. So those two really stick out in my head as like the first music where I associate it with like the smell of like the car leather and like opening the windows and like and the visuals of like going through like Blue Mountain and all the tunnels to get to Altoona. Those are really like formative memories for music for me.
Amazing. Yeah, it's fun because Creedence Clearwater Revival are also one of my first memories of music because, like John's voice, I grew up thinking, okay, yeah, I know this voice. It's like a familiar voice for me.
Their two voices are kind of, they're not similar, but they do have a similar qualities to them where they are like, and I mean no offense by this, but they're a little bit like cartoonish. They have a voice that is very distinct and like a little bit like high and kind of like grainy. And
Hmm.
there was just something about it where it was just like a little bit like Muppet like or something to me as a kid. And I was like, I like this guy. I like this is like kind of, it's a strange way to sing and I'm into it.
Yeah, yeah, it's very easy to love his voice for sure.
Yeah,
As I mentioned earlier, the starting line formed back in 1999 when you were just like 14 or 15 years old, correct?
correct.
So, how did being in a band affect your formative years? How did it help prepare you for life? And what challenges did it present, if any?
Yeah, oh, great question. Well, it definitely made me more comfortable in life in the terms of acceptance because I was always grasping for just like a sense of belonging really anywhere, whether it be like joining the track team or cross country, but like not really being fast enough to be competitive in it. It was really just something to do and to like gather a few extra friends, that were into the same sort of activity. But then when I met the starting line guys who went to other schools and, a few of them were even graduated and Watts was in college at that point. It felt really nice to be like running with an older crowd because that is like a little bit of a confidence boost, as far as like self-esteem goes. It felt like, oh yeah, like I have like this posse of like older kids that like in a sense protect me because like I am like a 15, 14-year-old kid. Now I'm friends with these like 20-year-olds and they were always having my back when it came to like going to punk shows and, taking me to parties and stuff like that. They were always looking out for me, like much like older brothers. And also musically, it felt nice to be hanging out with these kids that were more advanced than me and had a deeper knowledge of bands that were harder to find on the surface, especially, being in middle school or being like a freshman in high school. It was great getting exposed to that stuff. And the challenges were kind of the obvious ones that you would expect, like being in a band at that age and playing shows at colleges when I have to go back to high school on Monday. It was a little bit of an adjustment. I think it was probably a adjustment for my parents as well. That they, I'm sure, had to put a lot of trust into these guys that they were just meeting somewhat recently, but they hit it off with my parents, so that wasn't much of an issue. I'd say the biggest challenge was having to finish school before leaving for tour because it was about in the middle of the school year of my junior year of high school that we found out we were getting signed to Drive Through Records and they expected us to tour and I had to somehow find a solution to that. And I had asked my guidance counselor at my high school if I could get homeschooled on the road, how I could finish, because that was my one condition with my dad was you can go do this. He knew that I wanted to be a musician. He knew I was good at music and had a promising career in this, but he wanted me to finish school, which was totally reasonable. So when I asked the guidance counselor, she said, no, like we don't do homeschooling. We don't honor that kind of stuff. But you can go to community college at night and go to community college for a few months during the summer. And then I'm looking at your credits here, and you only need 4 or 5 more credits, and then you'll have enough to graduate. And I was like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was like, that's awesome. So I just go do a few extra classes and I'm out of here. And she said, yeah. And I asked, why don't more kids do this? And she said, oh, a lot of kids want the experience of going through their senior year of high school, going to prom, walking and everything like that. And I was like, oh, I don't care about any of that. Like, none of that appeals to me. So, yeah, I never walked with my graduating class or anything like that. I think my parents picked up my diploma while I was still on tour. And I could not wait to get out of high school and really give music a chance.
Yeah, that's a great story. You graduated on a van, basically.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love it. So, over the years, the starting line has come and gone a few times. You broke up and got back together, but didn't release any new music for a long time. And now you're back with a new album from 2025, playing shows and set to join the Warp Tour next summer. Was there ever a point where you truly thought the band was done for good?
I don't know if I thought if it was done for good. I knew that we needed a break around 2008 when we took our first departure. I knew that it was evident that it was necessary for us. I think that things had just hit a wall in the sense of we didn't have any new material that we were working on. I think we were all relatively burnt out from how much we had toured. And even looking back on it, it's kind of staggering to think that between 2002 and 2007, we recorded 3 records, which is only a 5 year span of time. So 3 records in 5 years, thinking of that now seems like a really furious pace to be doing things because
Yeah.
now it takes us, I mean, at least 3 years to even start thinking about a record. But we had that energy in us, and I think that we were burning as hot as we could back then, and then we just needed to rejuvenate ourselves. And we were in a place where no one was like fed up with each other. I think we left at a very healthy place as far as our interrelations go within the band. I think for sure, like we could have used a reprieve from hanging out with each other, and it was good for us to go and explore other projects musically, and stretch our legs creatively. It also gave us appreciation for the band once we went to other endeavors and then sort of had hindsight of like, that was a really good time that we had together. And we really do have fun playing music together. So we just kept up the tradition of playing a holiday show in Philadelphia or the Jersey, New York area basically every year, even since our hiatus. And that always gave us a nice family reunion sort of tradition to be able to see each other. And there's never any ill will when you do something like that, because even with your natural family, when you do that once a year, even if there's people that like sort of get on your nerves, it's always just nice seeing them once a year because they're family and you've grown up with them your entire life. And it's a very similar sensation when Starting Line gets together. And eventually that just formed, I think, even more of a close bond with us, where like at first like we just felt like a band and we felt like friends that were like, just grinding it out and just trying to make it work. And then eventually it was like something where, we're doing it once a year. We don't have to do this, but it is very nice doing it. And then it turned from friendship literally into family, and it feels like brotherhood. It feels like this band would be completely different if any one of us was not in it, which I don't see in a ton of other bands. I see a lot of intermoving parts with members in a lot of other bands. And to us, it really is very important and sentimental that the core members remain intact to this. I don't think that it would be quite the same if that weren't the case. So yeah, I mean, I think to make a long story short, I think that time away strengthened our bond and makes us as strong as we are today.
That's great. And yeah, by the way, now that you were speaking, I just realized how short the time between your first record and Directions is in that first era of the band. And that makes even crazier how much you changed in between those three records. It's so impressive, I think. So it's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it certainly feels like a longer period of time than it.
It does, because I was like living it from, far away, like listening to the music, and it felt longer for sure. Not that short, because so many things happened in between, those records. So it's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really do feel like time just moves so much faster the older that you get. And it just
Mm.
seems to like, for some reason, once you're younger, time seems to expand itself and you're able to accomplish so much more in a short period of time.
If you found a time traveling DeLorean in front of your house and you could use it for one day only to go anywhere in time, where would you go and what would you like to do there?
I think that I would like to see a title fight show.
Ah,
That would be nice. I feel like that's the one band that I really missed out on. It burns me because they were in such close proximity to where I live. They
true.
only, you know, originated about an hour from here. And I had heard the name a lot, especially, being friends with Will. I was always aware of Title Fight. But it wasn't until Hyperview came out where I was like, let me check this band out. And then I was like, oh, it's like sort of chill but fast. And then I
Yeah.
heard Floral Green. I was like, oh, they used to just be like straight up just like a punk band. I was like, this is sick. And then it felt like sort of a bizarro world of what Starting Line did, where it's like the first record was, like really dug its heels into being one thing, and then the next one it branched out into something else, and then the third one was just almost completely removed from the first one,
True.
all in a very quick succession of time. And now when I see videos of their shows and just how unhinged it is, I would have loved to experience that firsthand. It seems like so many in the next generation have found out about Title Fight after the fact, which is a real testament to their creativity, because I think it speaks volumes about how ahead of the game they were, and they were really prophetic with where the sound was going.
Their last record, Hyperview, you were talking about, they were so ahead with the showgaze sound. Right now, it's really full of band playing showgaze stuff, and they were very ahead of their time for sure.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of people that are swerving into that lane these days.
Yes, yeah, true. I got a stupid question now. If a magic spell could turn you into the lead singer of any band from any era, dead or alive, for one summer only, which band would you choose?
The first band that comes to mind is LCD Sound System.
Hmm.
I've always been a big fan of LCD Sound System since I've identified. I think it was Daft Punk is coming to my house. It was like in one of the FIFA games. So like once I figured out that that was LCD Sound System, I first like saw them at Bonnaroo in 2010. Seeing them at 1 in the morning, taking that trip, having never seen them before, I had just never seen this dynamic of a band, and especially a front person commanding a crowd in the fashion that they did. To me, like I was always exposed to like punk bands that were always trying to whip the crowd into a frenzy just through sheer energy and volume. And they had this approach where it wasn't like the loudness or the ferocity of playing that got the crowd whipped into a frenzy. It was actually the restraint.
Hmm.
It was their dynamic that drove the crowd so crazy. So it would be a lot of like things almost getting really loud and then sucking everything away except for just the bass and the guitar and the drums. So it would be a lot of removal of instruments that would like create a drop, and then they would just hit the disco ball. They didn't have to do any crazy dancing on stage. No, he pretty much just stays stationary in front of the mic and like is just wearing a t-shirt. He's able to like command the crowd in such a nonchalant way that gives me such envy, because I am just always spazzing out and going berserk on stage. It's a real like point of envy and jealousy when I can find a singer that can make an entire crowd move by just delivering an effortless performance in the style that he does.
Cool. Yeah, I never saw one of his shows, but everyone who did is telling me great things about him. So must be amazing.
Yeah, you owe yourself the opportunity to see LCD Sound System at least once. I've never had a bad time at one of their shows.
Three things you're grateful for today.
Easy. My daughter is an easy one because, oh my God, it sounds like cliche stuff that you hear from everybody that have kids, but it's amazing what like how hard like the realization hits you once it happens. It's just like the the sensation of her smiling every time I enter a room or like come back from somewhere or like wake her up, like it gives me this joy and satisfaction and fulfillment unlike anything that I've ever experienced in my life, and I just can't get enough of it. And I just like, we'll try to just like put my face in front of her as much as I can, because like it's just inevitably always just gives me this like high beam smile. She's just so rad. I'm just so happy because just such a proud daddy. And also my wife Lena has just been the most amazing mother and wife. Just feels so grateful, and we're just like best friends. We're still just like up until midnight, just like laughing and talking just like we did when we first met. So I feel very grateful for my little family who I love so much, and my dog Churro. He's a great guy. I locked him out because he gets a little bit jealous and wound up when I talk to other people. But he's a noble protector, and he's been falling into the new family dynamic very well. And yeah, I love my home base crew.
How old is your dog?
He's about to be 9 years old, at least by our estimation, because he was a
Mhm.
rescue from Mexico. So we just had to ballpark it.
So, final question I'm gonna ask you is to suggest us a song, a book, and a movie. They don't have to be your favorites because picking favorites is impossible, but just stuff you enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to pick Stronger Than Pride. Or is it maybe Love is Stronger Than Pride by Sade? That song, it's one that I never really get sick of, and I sing it to my daughter all the time. And there's just something about Sade's voice that is universally beloved and one of a kind, and also just so soothing. It's a toss up between that song and So Far Away by Carole King. Both of those songs I
Mm.
find just like the most like relaxing, comforting songs to put on at any time. This is just both so easy on the ears.
Yeah, that Carole King record is amazing. I
It
love it.
really is. Was it Tapestries?
Yeah, it is.
That is, I think, the greatest dollar bin record that anyone could ever find. Like it's right next to the Carpenters, close to you in like every
Yeah,
dollar bin record store. So anytime anyone is out there just like thrifting and has a record player but does not have Carole King Tapestries, you gotta just grab that.
yeah, and I grabbed that in a box for like $2 in Canada, by the way. So I have that experience exactly. So it's an amazing one.
She's a national treasure. I think that Carole King is quite possibly one of the most underrated singer songwriters, at least in America. And I know that she does have like, if Spotify is any indicator, she does have like a lot of plays. Like people are listening to this music, but I feel like rarely do people talk about how wonderful her voice and her music is.
Agree. And I thought it was a problem in Italy. And I thought in the US she were bigger, but maybe it's not like that,
No,
actually.
it's like kind of like if you know kind of artist. It's like an
Mm,
artist. I feel like what her day is coming where she's gonna
I
get
hope
that Bob
so.
Dylan recognition and someone's gonna play her in a movie.
Yeah, she deserve it. Totally.
I subscribe to the Criterion channel. I'm like a big movie guy, and I saw a documentary, and I'm like, oh shit, it's Carole King. It's like they got a Carole King documentary, and I just read it too fast, and it was Carole Kane, who's like the
Ah.
mom from License to Drive, and I'm like, it's like
Not the same.
she's fine, but I wanted to see what Carole King's up to
Yeah, we deserve a Carol King documentary. Come on.
for sure. I maybe need to direct that.
Yeah, you should do it, please.
Heck yeah. Okay, and then you said a book and a movie.
Yeah,
Okay, for a book, I will pick. Oh, you know what? I'm going to pick the No Effects biography.
good one.
Yeah, it's called something about like the hepatitis bathtub. Let me tell you, to be honest, I've only ever listened to the audiobook, but the audiobook I cannot recommend enough because all of the members of the band read it, and also like Jello Biafra and like a bunch of other like cool people like read chapters out of the book for like they all like read it in the like perspective of the character that's writing it. So like Mike's chapter, it'll like alternate between Mike, Smelly, Melvin, and Dave, like the original guitar player. But like Dave, like is like Tommy Chong. He's like Dave's not here, man. He like does that, and then Tommy Chong will read the chapter. It's very entertaining, but also like you can't even estimate how gnarly this book is. Like it is straight up like a thriller.
True.
There's murder, overdosing, there's gangs, there's car theft, like with the part where they steal a van, like Smelly steals a van with his buddy, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden they like hear like a kid in the back of it, and they
Yeah. Let's
realize that
bet
this
on
just
it.
like kidnapped someone, and then that kid turns out to be Billy Joe from Green Day.
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
it's just
yeah, it's so crazy.
that's just one of the mind-blowing stories. Yeah, and also like I mean several of the people in there like lose their parents. Like, and I think I was in the process of losing a parent during that one
Mm.
too. So like that book just really hit me hard. I think I was in tears quite a few times when I was listening to that book. Cannot recommend it enough. It's a thrilling journey.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah. Movies. This is tough because I love so many movies. I'm trying to think of one that really sticks out. You know what? I'm gonna say this one because I don't know if it's touted as like a great movie, but I think it is, and it really is responsible for getting me into this band. It's a movie called Control, and it's
Mhm.
about Joy Division, and
Mm.
most specifically about like Ian Curtis and his life. But the way that they shot this movie, and there's also like 24-hour party people, which hits on the Joy Division and a good deal of like their story from Control in like a more comedic way. Also a great movie, but Control is done in this way that it's like grainy, black and white. It just very like much captures the mood of Joy Division's music, and it's like whoever the guy, I'm spacing on his last name, but the guy Sam who played Ian Curtis, I think just does such a spectacular job of number one, just like acting and getting into the place and time and headspace that Ian Curtis was seemingly in at the time. I think he does a masterful job. I'm amazed that he's not in more things because he was so impressive. And also, like, I think that he re-recorded the vocals. And I
Oh
think that
wow.
like the performances are awesome. Like everything sounds so dope in that movie. Like I love all the re-recordings and I love all the performance sequences. It's just like it's a real like gut wrenching movie. It's obviously tragic because of what happened to Ian, but just the way that it plays out and the way that you see this band come together and like their unique take on punk music is it's something that I'm connecting with at this point in time because I also think that like Joy Division is a similar type of band, at least in the aspect that they were very much punk, but maybe didn't get enough credit for how punk they were
Mhm.
and how like I'm not saying that I'm like instrumental in like the shape of punk music at all, but I at least feel confidently that I do have like my own like unique characteristic and take on it. And I feel like Joy Division had that in a really concentrated way. And I don't think that I would have gotten into Joy Division nearly as much as I did without being exposed to that movie. So that one, and also I just don't hear people talk about it a lot. I think that it's
Mm.
very wonderfully done, like very artfully made, and it's one that I could watch anytime, even though it is very sad. So yeah, I recommend that to everybody.
That's great. So, Kenny, thanks a lot for the suggestions, the stories, for taking the time to do this. It was a great pleasure.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Thank you so much. Great questions.
Thanks. And thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and share it with your friends and loved ones. And why not with your enemies as well? And make sure to check out the other episodes. I've been talking with a lot of amazing people. I've been talking with Mike Kinsella from American football, Davey Van Bolen from The Promise Ring, Bill Stevenson from The Descendants, Eric Melvin from NoFX, Laura Jean Grace from Against Me, Cyrus Buluki from Newfound Glory, Matt Pryor from The Get Up Kids, Mike Herrera from MXPX, and so many more. Go check them out. Ciao, ciao.